Now we're recording. What a way to start.
It has been a day.
Oh, a good day?
No. Kelsey made some delicious dinner, and because she made it, I put it away, and I was trying to pour, it was like pot roast, and I was like, well, we want the pot roast juices into the Tupperware.
Of course.
So I decided it was a small circular Tupperware and what's the contraption where it's like a rounded rectangle that holds food and you can cook in it? And you can put a glass hat on it.
Casserole dish?
Yeah. So it was in that, which have real thick but curved edges.
Yeah.
And so I poured it and it just went everywhere. So that's why I had to move the what's it called? The oven. But we have a really small kitchen, so I couldn't push the oven all the way out. So I had to lay on my tummy on the corner of the counter and hang upside down and clean the side of the counter.
Sorry.
So
I wonder when you texted me and you're like, what do you say? Like, I messed something up. I have to pull the oven out. And I was like, I'll just ask her about it in a few minutes. Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think I sent you, I need to move the oven. I've made a mistake.
Yes. That's what you said. And I just said, okay, sounds good. I'll be on TikTok. Would you like to hear, though, how I tried to save a duck today?
I would love nothing more, genuinely.
Okay, good. So as you know, and as many of our hemisphere of the world knows, it is a very, very fucking cold right now. Like 20, 30 degrees below zero type of cold. But my girls got these, I don't know why they got them at school or for what, but they got these like little coupons for a free personal pan pizza. Oh, that was a lot of
I thought you were going to say free duck. And I was like, whoa.
A free duck for learning their alphabet. You know, when you get a duck for that. No, personal pan pizza.
Maybe I wouldn't be dyslexic if I had a free duck.
Let's start the Give a Duck for Reading program. We give a duck about reading.
That's so cute. Write that down.
Okay. We will start that program. We don't have that program now, unfortunately. So they got a pizza from Pizza Hut, which I truly have not gone to that place since I worked there when I was 17. So I didn't really want to, but they are so hyped about these personal pizzas because they've never had one before because I'm a bad mom. So I had been putting it off, and they were finally like, can we please have our pizza this evening? I'm like, fine. So I call it in and I decided I'm going to go pick it up because the roads are kind of yucky and I don't want to be one of those people that's like, well, I'm going to order delivery for everything so that somebody else has to go out on the bad roads. I head out. I get the pizza. That goes fine. I'm coming back, and the way I'm coming back, it's 4 lanes, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And I'm going down the road and I see something in the middle of like the right 2 lanes on the ground. And I'm like, what is that? And as I'm going by, I see it's a fucking duck, and like a real duck. Like I can sort of see its head moving, but it's just sitting there on the ground, and it stays there as I go by. It stays there as other cars go by. And I'm like, holy shit, I think it's frozen to the ground. So as I'm driving, I can't stop thinking about this duck. So I call my husband, and I know that this is a mistake as soon as I do it because, I mean, what is he going to tell me? And I knew that going in, but I call him anyway because I didn't know who else to call because we don't have duck police. And I was like, hey, so I tell him the story about the duck, and he's like, I don't really know what you can do. He goes, unless you have a bucket of hot water to melt the ice, like you're really not going to be able to do anything. And then I look around my car, like maybe I forgot that I do have a kettle of hot water in the car.
A hot plate.
Yeah. So I'm still thinking about this duck. I've already turned around so I can loop back and see if the duck is still there. He is not helpful. I ask him, I'm like, can I call animal control? He's like, no, it's Sunday. So I'm like, fuck. I go back. The duck is still sitting in the middle of the road. Okay. Like it has not moved. I see it kind of shuffling a little bit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's just hurting my heart. So I pull over like way in front of it, and I put my little hazard thingies on. And I get out of my car, trying not to get run over. Luckily, there wasn't a lot of traffic. I'm like, someone's going to like slide and run into me. And that's how I go, being a stupid fucking idiot. I get within maybe 10 feet of this duck. It flies the fuck away.
No!
Yeah, it just takes right off. It did me like that.
I think it should have just, even though it obviously wasn't stuck, I think it should have just stayed there and let you like pick it up.
Yes, because I was also a little bit excited. I thought, I'm going to get to like cradle a duck. Like I'm going to get to pick it up and scoop it up in my arms.
They can be really cute pets. Not
this one. This one basically flipped me off as it flew away. I could not believe it.
Just 2 little wings. Bye.
Bye. I'm like, why did I scare it walking up to it? But the cars literally flying past it as it's on the ground didn't scare it.
I don't know.
That was a scam artist duck, and so I'm pissed about it.
What? I'm surprised like 5 ducks didn't jump out of the bushes and pull knives on you.
Ambush me. And then I had to walk all the way back to my car after people probably saw me trying to approach this duck.
Well, on the bright side, because it's icy, but people are still going fast on that road, they see you for like a split second.
I hope so, because I just felt really embarrassed and sad. I mean, it was literally a sitting duck, and I was trying to help it, and it wouldn't let me.
You can't even catch a sitting duck.
No, and I hate being one of those people. You know, I'll see something like that, and I'll think like somebody else will take care of it, and I'm trying not to be that person. And as soon as I try, guess who looks like an idiot?
No, but I think that's commendable. I think that's a lot of times one of the reasons why people are that person is because they like stand up for somebody or do something like once or twice and it doesn't go well and they're just like, never mind, I won't anymore. I think it takes a lot of courage to look stupid on the highway trying to save a duck that can fly. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you. You're just like, why did it do that? So rude.
Do you remember when I used to, like, if I found dogs loose outside, I would just bring them into our yard? And then sometimes Mom, do you remember that time there's this huge, I mean, it was like a Bernese mountain dog, and I found it scampering around. And where we lived was close to a really busy road. It was the house that we both loved that I can't believe Mom and Dad sold because they hate us.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, that one. And I was afraid that this dog was going to get hit. So I just brought the dog into our yard and Mom comes out and and Mom's a little afraid of dogs. Like she likes smaller dogs. Shiloh was like a bing bong. So she was good with Shiloh and stuff.
Yeah.
But Mom just opens up the door and like the screen door and pretty much is like, what, why, what the hell is that? And I'm pretty sure I just yelled like I liberated it. But then we did have to figure out who it belonged to.
There is that. Yeah. And those are huge dogs.
It was such a nice dog though. And it loved hanging out in the yard with me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And we did find its home. It was like it was really close by. So I didn't have to like trek
even
far.
Better.
Yeah. But then one time, Kelsey and we are living there's this street in the town that I now reside that is like, while working in news, there was just constantly like incredibly violent crimes on it and lots of drugs. And sometimes I would go running there at 11 p.m. at night, just chilling. Anywho.
Good.
So it was winter, so it was cold as dick. And I heard something outside, which is like the start of any horror movie, but it sounded like a dog being sad.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, no, I know that. And that's like, most likely it's not that. And if it is, then go with God, I guess. So I think it was maybe like 5 a.m. and I hear this sad dog and Kelsey is just like, oh my God, she's like, it's fine. But it wasn't fine because it was really fucking cold. So I go outside and I bring this chonky little Westie into the house.
Oh.
And Yarrow walks out and goes, his mouth made a perfect O. And he did this. And looked at me with that little like perfect, he looked like a cartoon. I've never seen a cat or dog. Like it was a perfect O and just like, what? And he just froze there and stared at it. And then I was like, okay, it had a collar and Kelsey was like, we're not driving around right now. So we just like kept it in the house for like an hour because we figured anyways, like the person's not going to be up. And then I think at 6 I called and it was like the number didn't work or something, if I remember correctly. So then we started driving to the location where like it had on the tag and like the people had moved. It was obvious like nobody lived there. So then I had the brilliant idea of, because I was like, we can't just, like, I don't want to bring the dog to the pound or something like that. So I noticed it had a veterinary place on it. And so I called them and they were familiar with the dog. Oh, the dog, I think, got car sick because she did throw up curly fries in Kelsey's car. Somebody had fed her curly fries recently.
No.
But then we dropped the dog off and she was reunited with her person.
Oh, that was a good idea to call the vet's office.
Thank you. I felt very smart. But that went from like 5 a.m. until it was almost 9 a.m. Like we were trying to find anybody and get a hold of people. And it was an adventure.
Shit. Yeah, sounds like it.
Anyway.
I'm in a different seating position because I noticed a lot of noises coming from my chair that last episode. Like I can't move at all without it making farting noises. So I am now in a very uncomfortable wooden chair for this recording. And I'm not happy about it, but like I do it for you guys because I don't think you should have to hear farts or what sound like farts throughout your listening experience. So you're welcome.
I didn't edit them out. There's just too many.
I know. I was like listening through little clips last night and I was like, damn it, my chair did it again. And she didn't edit any of them out.
I'm sorry. It was a rushed edit.
Because you were trying to sabotage me.
That too.
Would you like to know what we are talking about today?
I would love nothing more. Now that I have the duck story, this is what I want.
Because I'm like, you can say no if you want to.
I just get up and leave.
You're like, no, that's okay. I'm good.
Not feeling it actually, but thank you.
So, Sid and valued listeners, I would like you all to hold on to your bazumas and put on your fish party hats, because today we are discussing the confessions of our girl, Georgia Nicolson.
That is a delight and unexpected. I'm so excited.
Me too. She came up in our quiz a couple weeks ago, and I thought, you know what? I've been thinking about it a lot. It would be nice to get into something that's a little bit lighthearted and fun, you know, because our podcast is so serious.
Yeah, I was going to be like, you know how dark it is. Well, sometimes
sometimes.
What are we going to drop this time?
What weird and painful little factoids are you and I going to share with each other? Who knows?
I don't actually have one right now, but we'll see.
Damn it. Okay. So listen. The Georgia Nicolson series, if you haven't read it, was based on the teenage confessions of, you guessed it, Georgia Nicolson. It was an English series written by author and comedian Louise Rennison. And Louise passed away in 2016, unfortunately, but she was an interesting lady, so I wanted to talk about her a bit. Her first major success was a one-woman show she wrote in the 1980s, and it was called Stevie Wonder Felt My Face. I did not look into it further. It's a great title. I thought that's all I need to know.
That's fantastic.
So later on, she went on to have a column in a London newspaper where it seems like she got to write about pretty much anything she wanted. And this got the attention of the Piccadilly Press, which I did not know was a real thing, to approach her about writing a teenage diary book. This is directly from Wikipedia. Quote, they said her writing was so self-obsessed and so childish that she would be perfect to write such a book.
Okay, wow.
Piccadilly Press, everyone.
Woo. Who needs friends? Or who needs enemies?
Right, there you go.
When you have friends
when you
like
have
the Piccadilly Press.
Yeah, I'd like to think it was a compliment. Anyway, she went on to write the Georgia Nicolson series, so I guess yay for all of us. Here's a fun fact. Louise actually used names and stories of people in her childhood in the book. So in a bookpage.com interview that I will link in the show notes, she says, quote, my parents beg and plead for me not to admit this, but all the things in the books actually happened, and all the people are based entirely on real people. So before you ask, yes, I did go to a party dressed as a stuffed olive. And yes, I did shave off my eyebrows by mistake. By the way, never do this unless you want to stay in your room for the next 40 years. The sadness is that I put real people's names in it. So I fully expect to be killed by Elvis Atwood, the school caretaker, when I go back to my old school.
That's phenomenal.
Right?
She is unstoppable.
Correct.
I can't imagine right now writing and just using, like, not even using aliases or mixing the names around. I cannot imagine doing that. And we didn't go to like a super large high school. And
no,
but I just, maybe it's because of social media now, but that seems also so freeing.
Right? That she was just like, oh, I'm just going to use their real names. And then I'm also like, she's a comedian as well. Is this like a bit? Like, is she telling people this to be funny? I don't really know. And I didn't look into it any farther because I'm not a good researcher, but that's what she said in this interview. So
to me, it doesn't come across as a bit because I feel like the point of, or not the point of a bit, but usually you know.
True.
I mean, maybe you don't always know. I don't know how to phrase it, but
it's wild.
It seems weird if she just answered this one question, like, I'm going to do a bit here. And then there's no back and forth between her and the interviewer and the bit is done.
That's fair. That's fair. Anyway, stuffed olive, no eyebrows, all sorts of other shenanigans and hijinks allegedly happened, which is pretty phenomenal. In this same interview, she also said that, quote, she wrote not in an attempt to teach, but to make herself laugh. She said, I wanted Georgia to be a decent person. I wanted her to be someone who is a bit stupid and self-obsessed and difficult and funny and rude and a bit jealous and all those other things. But I wanted her to have a good heart. This reminded me a lot of, first of all, that's kind of teenagers in a nutshell. Like, most of them really are assholes. And it reminded me, though, of what we were talking about in our first episode about Sailor Moon, where Serena's character is very much a typical girl of that age. Like, she can be very selfish and flighty and kind of a bad friend sometimes.
And like really overdramatic and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yes. All right. I am going to quiz you today on Georgia Nicolson slang. So are you ready?
I am so ready.
Number 1, what does having the painters in mean?
Oh, and there's no like multiple choice. It's just.
Oh, no. You just have to know. Think of a color.
Okay. Is it your period?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That was my first guess, but then I was like, is that going to sound ridiculous? And then when you said color, I was like, obviously it's blood from your vajingles.
I feel like you knew it deep down in your heart. You don't have to be scared of your knowledge.
You're right. I'm a powerful jaguar.
Number 2, what does stroppy mean?
Does it mean, is it good or bad? It sounds bad.
It's a negative.
Is it like frumpy?
It's more of an emotion.
Is it like frustrated?
Yeah, kind of.
Please use it in a sentence.
I got very stroppy when my child accidentally dropped her toy in my coffee, which is a true story that happened this morning.
I mean, that sounds like pissed or like exasperated and frustrated.
Yeah, and that maybe wasn't the best example. So I'm going to read, do you remember in the back of the books there was a glossary?
Not really, because you were the one who read them to me.
Oh, okay, fair. So anyway, there's a glossary in the back of these books, and it lays out kind of all of her sort of made up terms and then kind of just English slang that us Americans might not know. So stroppy, and this is directly from the book, is a very useful expression and is a state in between having a nervy bee, nervous breakdown, and a tantrum. For instance, you would get stroppy or throw a strop if your mom would not let you borrow her Chanel handbag for no reason other than she says you would lose it. You would not quite have a nervy bee because it is, after all, just a handbag. However, you are perfectly entitled to get stroppy if you can't have what you want.
Okay, stroppy.
Third and final question. What are dealy boppers?
Is it an item of clothing?
Accessory.
Or is it boobs?
Accessory.
Earrings?
No. More
Nipple
geared
tassels.
towards children.
Oh.
Yeah, so no.
No. Geared towards... I don't know. I was hoping you were going to pick like snogging or things like that, where I know these I have no idea.
Everybody knows what snogging is.
I
Come
know.
on. I'm not going to go that easy on you. So dealy boppers are those like antenna headband things with the balls on the end.
Okay.
Dealy boppers.
Dealy boppers.
Dealy boppers. Okay. The books in order. I only reread the first one for this episode, but I've read all of them several times. So the first is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, and it came out in 1999.
Whoa, I didn't realize they were that old. But I mean, I guess it makes sense because you read them to me at the Z House, which would have been in the 90s.
Yeah.
And early 2000s.
Wild, right?
That's banana bread.
And a side note on this, and probably Mom will have a correction for me, and that's fine. I am pretty sure that Mom bought me the first book, and I remember being a little bit weirded out because it has thongs in the title, and like my mother was buying it for me. So it was one of those moments where like I was the prude and going like, what is wrong with my mom? Like, why did she buy me this book when it talks about thongs?
I wonder what made Mom pick it out.
She probably like saw something on Oprah. I don't know.
Mom, call in.
Your mom's senses should be tingling that we need you right now. Nope, she can't hear us. Damn it. So some of these have UK titles and different English titles, which is interesting that not all of them do. And I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind that. So the second book, the UK title was It's Okay, I'm Wearing Really Big Knickers. The US title was On the Bright Side, I'm Now the Girlfriend of a Sex God, and that came out in 2001. Third book is Knocked Out by My Nunga Nungas. That's 2002. Dancing in My Nudie Pants was 2003. The next one, the UK title was And That's When It Fell Off in My Hand. And Away Laughing on a Fast Camel was the US title. That came out in 2004. 2005 was Then He Ate My Boy in Trancers. 2006 is Startled by His Furry Shorts. This next one is Lerv is a Many-Trousered Thing is the UK version, and Love is a Many-Trousered Thing is the US version. I don't know why they couldn't have just kept that one the same.
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, if you're a reader of the series, you're going to know what Lerv means. That was 2007, which is the year I graduated. Stop in the Name of Pants, 2008. And the last book of the series was called Are These My Bazumas I See Before Me, 2009.
I didn't know there were so many because obviously, like, you didn't read them all to me. I think maybe the first 4 or 5 sound familiar.
I would say so, too. I can't remember exactly which ones I read to you. But yeah, I do believe I have all of these. I dug out the first book, which is very worn. So I've read it many, many times. But I believe I did see at least Away Laughing on a Fast Camel as I was digging for it.
That's the last title that sounds familiar, but I don't know if you read that one to me.
And now I'm having second thoughts as far as like, did I read all of these? I'm pretty sure I did. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
The book series focuses on Georgia, obviously, but we also hear a lot about the Ace Gang, which is Georgia's close group of friends. So we have, and I've heard it pronounced 2 different ways. I've always pronounced it Jazz, but I've heard it pronounced Jazz as well. How do we say that? Do you know?
Riley, I'm dyslexic. I don't know anything about spelling or pronunciation.
Okay. I'm going to keep saying it the way I always have. It's Jas, so I've always said Jazz. So she's sort of Georgia's best friend of the group, but they have sort of a frenemy relationship because they also, I feel like, are the meanest to each other.
They are the Sailor Moon and Sailor Mars dynamic.
Yes.
A little bit.
Very true. And there's a lot of, we'll kind of get into this later when we're talking about how it holds up today, but I feel like there's a lot of body shaming from both of them to each other. You know, there's that kind of toxic girl shit, but they are the best friends, I suppose. Then we have Rosie. If you'll remember, Rosie meets a guy named Sven, who's like Danish.
A little bit.
A little bit.
You reread these a ton, but you only read them to me once. And I would have been in elementary school and middle school, like early middle school. So, and I haven't read them since. So there's a lot is going to be quite fuzzy or just gone for me.
That's okay. After Rosie, we have Jules. And then Ellen. Ellen's a little bit of like the annoying friend. She's a bit of like a goody two-shoes as described by Georgia. And then there's Mabs. So that's the Ace Gang in a nutshell. Then we've got the boys because there's a lot of boy talk in these books. In the first one alone, we have Peter Dyer. He's the professional snogger. Now, I don't know, I could have censored this for you when I read it for you, but she and her friends go to this boy who you pay money to be like your first snog, and so that you can practice for like the real thing. And she ends up like sort of accidentally dating him for a little bit. So there's him. There is Mark Big Gob.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah, has a huge mouth. She often compares him to Mick Jagger.
Oh yeah. I had no idea. Like, it was a comparison that never made sense to me. Just because at the time I had no idea who Mick Jagger was.
Yeah, that's true. You were a little young. He also, and again, I could have censored this, but he just like put his hand on her breast at one point and just kind of like let it hang out there. So she often refers to him as like the breast fondler as well.
I am pretty sure you would have censored that.
Okay. Well, he did that a couple times. He was kind of gross. He broke up with the one girl he was with to like go be with Georgia for a little bit. And then after he was with Georgia for a bit, he said something to her of the effect of, I'm going back to so-and-so because she lets me do stuff to her.
Oh.
And then that was just sort of it. Then there is Robbie Jennings, and he is the sex god as referenced in the book. And he is Tom's older brother. Tom and Jas end up getting into a relationship pretty early on in this series, and it goes, I think, throughout the whole thing pretty much. They have a brief breakup in the first book, and then they get back together.
Wait, and who is Tom again?
Tom is Robbie's younger brother.
Okay, but you haven't introduced Tom beyond that.
No.
Oh, okay.
He's just Tom.
Okay.
He's just Robbie's younger brother. He ends up with Jas. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
He and Jas are kind of like the stable couple of most of the series, I would say. And they also kind of get labeled as the boring couple. I feel like, though, in friend groups, that's kind of what happens. It's like the first person to get coupled up with is immediately then sort of like ostracized, and it's like, oh, they're so boring now.
Yeah, I think if it's like a healthy relationship.
Then these two were not in the first book, but I remember them deeply. So there's is it Massimo? Is that how you say that? I know I already asked you about a pronunciation, but he's Italian. Massimo.
How do you spell it? Let's pretend I know.
Okay. Massimo. Massimo.
Pronunciation.
I mean, could I have done this? Yes. Did I? Mm-mm.
Massimo. Yeah, either Massimo or Massimo. I don't know. I don't really know how to read pronunciation things. Whatever.
Okay, good enough. He's the Italian stallion. And then, and then there's Dave the Laugh. He also dates her friend Ellen for a little bit, which is probably partially why she does not like Ellen as much.
I remember the name Dave the Laugh.
Dave the Laugh, yes. And he is a laugh. And I do remember liking him quite a bit because he was like a good friend as well. All right, we are on to the enemies. So we've got Wet Lindsay.
Oh, yeah, Wet Lindsay.
Wet Lindsay. And the reason she is the enemy, I'm kind of looking at differently now. So she was actually Robbie the sex god's girlfriend initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is somebody down here? Honey, you gotta go to sleep. Okay, I will give you a hug, but you scared me, honey, and you're not supposed to be down here, okay? All right, I love you. You can wave to Auntie Sid real quick. Tell her good night.
Love you, Poodle Noodle. Tell her I say love you, Poodle Noodle.
Okay, she says love you. Go back upstairs, please. Okay.
When you're just like, is someone down here?
I heard something, and then I could see a little shadow.
That is terrifying.
She was so quiet. I didn't expect it to be her either. I thought it was maybe coming to ask something because I thought she was asleep. And I'm so glad that I was just talking about a sex god because I can only imagine she's going to go to school tomorrow and be like, my mommy was on a microphone talking about sex gods last night. So
in the basement. She told me I'm not allowed down there.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Whew. Okay. What were we talking about?
The sex god and Wet Lindsay.
Wet Lindsay. Okay. Now I'm just like, Maybe I shouldn't have this sheet across because it's very, like, murdery.
It is creepy.
Okay, Wet Lindsay. I have begun to rethink a little bit because she was Robbie's girlfriend in the book, like before Georgia even knew him and developed a crush on him from seeing him at the grocery store that his parents own that both he and Tom work at. And
Cute.
basically the reason she doesn't like Wet Lindsay is because... Oh, what are you doing down here? Okay.
Love you, Poodle
Good night
Noodle.
to both of you. She says love you.
I say love you, Poodle Noodle.
She says love you, Poodle Noodle. Excuse me. Okay, so apparently dragged her down because she wanted her to say hi to you.
I mean, that's pretty cute.
Okay, I have this open slightly so I can maybe not be so scared or snuck up on. Anyway, Wet freaking Lindsay.
Wait, hold on. Is David here?
Yes.
Oh,
he's probably in bed. And they're just coming down. I mean, we're kind of used to them like getting up a little bit here and there. So I'm sure he just doesn't realize that they're coming all the way downstairs.
Yeah, just like, oh, they're going to the bathroom or like getting
right. Or sometimes they will like go to the other one's room or whatever. And anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I might shoot him a text here shortly. Be like, hey, we need a door down here.
Have you seen our kids?
Yeah. I'm going to start this for the third time.
Honestly, it's built up a lot of anticipation. I really cannot wait to hear. I know this. See, this is good storytelling, though. It's not even that great, but you're making it feel like it's going to be that great.
My basic point is that Wet Lindsay is not the enemy that she is painted to be. Essentially, George's big problem with her is that she was Robbie's girlfriend and she likes him. And it kind of becomes one of those things where Robbie is actually the one who sort of starts flirting with Georgia and kisses her while he's dating Lindsay. And instead of Robbie being the problem, the girls are both fighting over him.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I know, but I remember reading that as a kid and like hating her. And I believe later in the books, like she genuinely is an a-hole to Georgia and her friends. However, Georgia did kind of go after her mans. So I could understand her being a little bit pissed off.
I could understand, like, if I were a Wet Lindsay, I would be pissed at both of them.
Yes.
Like, primarily, it's shittier, whoever you're dating, it's shittier that they would cheat on you. But it's also, like, it's gross that somebody else knows that this person is dating somebody else, you know, another person, and doesn't care that they're cheating. So, you know what? I stand Wet Lindsay, I think.
I mean... Yeah, I definitely didn't despise her as much. Like I had that initial feeling when I saw her name, it was just like, ugh. And then as I was reading, I'm like, oh, I don't think she's the problem. Also, Robbie is, I believe, 17 in this first book, and Georgia is 14.
Oh, I don't like that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And they also talk about, I think Ellen at one point talks about going to some party and making out with a 19-year-old when she was like 13.
No. Is it told in a way that's supposed to be
bad? No, it's
no.
Yeah, so that was a little bit frightening, and I don't know what the laws are in England around like,
I don't care what the laws are.
Well, I mean,
I get what you're saying of whether or not it like I don't. Wow. Okay. I hate
it
that.
Was technically legal 17 and 14, but you know, she ages and he ages throughout the book. So what happens when he's 18 and you're 15?
Oh, also it's like just because something is technically legal
doesn't mean it's okay.
Like you could legally date an 18-year-old. You could legally date an 18-year-old high school student. But doesn't that make you like, right? Isn't that disgusting? And I would absolutely, in this gross hypothetical, if you were like, hey, here's my boyfriend and he's 20, I would give you so much shit.
As you should.
Yeah, like I would.
Yeah, I'm too old.
Yeah, no, I would be like, honestly, like I would be repulsed by you. And I would be like, are you like vacationing to pedophile town? Like what is happening?
Oh, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, no, I just, look, if you were gross, I would call you out on it and I would expect you to do the same for me.
Yeah. You know what? We all need someone in our life like that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I am going to read you this description of Wet Lindsay from Georgia. So give me a moment of page shuffling.
You should take a picture of your book. It's cute that it's like all wrecked and you have all your little sticky notes.
Yeah, the binding is like absolutely broken on it. I've read this many times. Okay, so here's my Lindsay description note. Again, this is from Georgia's voice. On my way to science class, I saw Lindsay. How wet can you be? She really is Mrs. Wet. She has the wettest haircut known to humanity, all curled under at the bottom. I saw her legs in hockey, and they are really spindly, like spindly legs, like she's been in a wheelchair and not been walking for years. And also, when she is concentrating, she wears big, googly glasses. I bet she keeps those well hidden when she goes out with Pratt Boy. So that's a little sneak peek into kind of the general body shaming of other girls that goes on in this book.
I was going to say, I remember a little bit when I was younger, there were points where I was kind of confused because you liked, and I liked her so much, but then there were times where I didn't like her. And as a pretty young kid, that was like weirdly confusing because
Yeah.
I processed things and just because I was a kid, but also just like my personality for a long time was very much this unrealistic, like you have to like everything about your friends, or do you actually like them enough to be friends? And if your friend doesn't like something about you, does that mean that they don't really want to be your, like I had this very like all or nothing sort of mentality that when I was confronted with things like that, I just remember, like, I don't remember a lot from the book, but I remember little bits. And I also remember like various feelings I had during it. And that was like one of my feelings is sometimes it made me kind of uncomfortable, not like any of the sexy stuff or stuff like that, but when it just seemed like she was being really mean and it.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes sense because I think when you are that age, you are relating so hard to her in some ways that when she does that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, well, do I like this person? Do I want to be like this person? And honestly, I think that is what makes her so realistic as a character because she isn't just one thing. And as teens and as adults, we can be mean. And especially when you're thinking these are like her innermost thoughts, like we all have some terrible, shitty thoughts or things we wouldn't say out loud that we would put in a journal or something and not say because they are terrible.
That is a really good point to make, that your thoughts aren't necessarily who you are. It would be a different thing if she was like saying those things.
But it is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult, especially because like the tone is, when you're reading that, like the tone is, from my recollection, like supposed to be funny.
Yes.
And so that's kind of why I'm like, it made me a little like, is that the framing of it was like, these are her inner thoughts, but also like they're really funny, and not like these are her inner thoughts and like she's insecure and jealous and like analyze that. Like it's a comedic book. So I get that. I mean, that was something that I think Mom was very progressive about. It's just like Mom was very anti-bullying and very anti like body shaming, and
yeah, absolutely,
very anti like don't hate girls just to hate girls, like don't compete.
Yes.
Don't feel like you have to compete with other girls in that like catty Mean Girls way.
Yeah, absolutely, because that was a very, not that it still isn't pushed today in certain ways, but I feel like in the 2000s that was a very normal,
oh my god,
celebrated thing, is that like girls just fight. You're always jealous of each other, you're always competing. So I think it is a sign of the times. There are a lot of things in this book that we'll go over that are very much a sign of the times. And I think that was one of them, where it's like the girls are fighting. They're not both coming together and being like, why do we like this guy who's playing both of us?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a very 90s, 2000s thing. I mean, one of the topics I want us to talk about is, and we've talked about it in certain episodes, like the Paris Hilton episode, but I really want to talk more about like tabloids and 2000s celebrity, quote unquote, celebrity news. Because I think if you are in your early 20s, or God forbid, younger than this and listening, you missed you were saved from.
Yeah,
I can't even explain. The media was so gratuitous and horrible to women in a way, like, not like it isn't now, but I feel like now it's more nuanced in how it's awful for the most part. Right. Before, though, it was just full on, let's be awful. It's fine. Also, you should join in on being awful with us because these women deserve it for not looking or acting or behaving a certain way. And it's really gross because, like, definitely, we talked about it in the Paris Hilton episode of, like, we fell into it. Like, it was so easy to fall into it and be like, that dumb bimbo. And what's also funny is, like, just the idea that, like, not everybody is super smart, but that doesn't make you a bad person. Like, there are plenty of really intelligent people who are truly horrific. I would say there are more evil, intelligent people than there are, like, truly evil, dumb people. And it's really weird how we're like, okay, well, because we think, not even saying that this person is, but we think this actress or this woman is dumb, that she doesn't deserve respect.
Yeah.
Or anything. Like, it's strange because I'm like, how intelligent you are, a lot of it is just like how you're born.
There's so many factors. Yeah. And but everybody's definition of what that means is different.
Yeah, but we truly treated it like it was I mean, I know it's not a pause, like, nobody wants to be unintelligent, but it's not an evil thing. And we treated it like it was a chosen, and I guess sometimes people play it up, but we treated it like it was this chosen, like, really shitty trait. Like, this person's dumb and this one is a drunk driver. Same thing, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, sometimes people are just kind of airheads, and most airheads I've met are actually very sweet.
Well, then they would typecast them in that. And sometimes I think that would cause people to then play into it, because what else are you supposed to do? You know, I think most of us would be lying if we said we didn't have a moment where we said or did something really stupid. And if someone had caught it and spread it around, that would make us look like we were complete idiots because of one thing we said or did.
Exactly. I think about this a lot, particularly when listening to some of the podcasts we do, because I was listening to one by Morbid where they covered, it was an accident. It was the Nutty Putty. Have you listened to that one yet? I've listened to a few different podcasts about it. So Nutty Putty cave incident where the man gets trapped and he dies.
Yeah.
And it is heart-wrenching. And what I get really frustrated about, and because I worked in news, I saw this a lot, where people die by accident a lot. People do something that, it seems dumb, or it's like, that's so risky. And I just want to say, people do not deserve to be punished by death for it.
No.
Every time you make a mistake, and it's like a big mistake, and you don't have horrible consequences, it's like, great, that's a learning experience. That's what mistakes are for. I hate, and this is something that just, like, listening more and more to stories like this, and I think also, I don't know, like, maturing or whatever, I realized that when I was younger, I probably would be like, well, he knew he was taking a risk, so it's kind of on him. And now I'm like, yeah, he knew he was taking a risk, but it's still not like he went there to die. And people make mistakes, and also sometimes there are things where, like, just accidents happen.
Oh, yeah, freak accidents.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know we're kind of on a tangent, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it really frustrates me where people are pretty much like, because somebody made a poor decision or because you think they're dumb, their punishment is that they died, and you're, like, happy about that, and you're like, well, that's what they deserve. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that shouldn't be your reaction as a human. In simple terms, it's victim blaming. That's what it comes down to. It's the same thing people do when, you know, women get themselves murdered or get themselves raped. And I'm using big air quotes when I say that, because nobody sets out. Yeah. Nobody sets out to have that happen to them. I don't care what they were doing or what they were wearing. It's sorry, you're incorrect. And it's just victim blaming.
It makes me so angry because I think I have done a lot of dumb shit.
I think my final note on Wet Lindsay is that, you know, maybe she might deserve some justice. Yeah. We might need to stop using her name in vain like we do.
We're all Wet Lindsays.
We all have a little bit of Wet Lindsay inside. Nope.
Oh, nope.
Cut it.
Nope.
Cut it.
Nope. To jail.
All right. Well, now that we've gotten off of our Wet Lindsay tangent that went super dark.
As we now stand Wet Lindsay, can we be called Wetties?
No, never. Stop it. That's gross.
We'll see.
No, we won't. We won't. All right. I'm making my way through the list of the other quote unquote enemies. So the next enemies are Jackie and Allison, also known as the Bummer Twins. Do you remember them at all?
I remember their names, but I don't remember like much about them.
They were kind of like the rough girls at school, and they kind of bully Georgia and her friends. In the first book, they make Georgia and her group and a few other girls play light as a feather, stiff as a board in a building they're not supposed to be in at school. So they just do like stuff like that, or they're always like, they'll sneak out and put a bunch of makeup on to go like clubbing or whatever. They're just kind of like the bad girls. And if you'll remember, at their school, it's an all-girls school, and they're not allowed to wear makeup.
Ooh, rebels.
Yes. So they were always trying to perfect like a natural makeup look that wouldn't get them sent to go wash it off.
In trouble.
Yes. Yeah. Our next enemy is Elvis Atwood, the caretaker of the school.
Who's apparently a real person.
And now that I'm really thinking about that, I'm even more disturbed because there is a part in the first book where Georgia breaks into his little hut on the school grounds and finds pictures of him and the missus in the nude in some weird magazine. And if that did actually happen, I just have lots of feelings about that. But we don't know. So I'm not going to make any allegations.
Let's say that part is fiction. That part is fiction. I feel better about that.
Yes, me too. The last I have on this list is Slim, the headmaster, I think would be her actual title. And they call her Slim because she is not even hardly slim. So that would be just another example of 14-year-old girls body shaming. She's also really mean, if that helps. I don't know.
I don't think we're allowed to body shame even if people are mean.
No, we're not. But that's what they call her. And I don't know or remember her actual name. So there we have it.
Do you remember what we used to call our principal?
Which one?
The high school one. It was just initials, but it was how we said it.
No, I don't.
You don't remember D-Dub?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And how she hated it.
It's like, of all the things that you could have been called as a high school principal, like I would take D-Dub.
D-Dub.
I forgot about that.
What I love is that we attended the same high school, but we were 4 grades apart. So when you were in the high school, I wasn't there. I just love that D-Dub was consistently her nickname, like through generations.
I had totally forgotten about that.
She pulled me out of class so many times.
Why?
Because
you were lesbian?
I mean, kind of. No, you remember how I was so proud because I got to join the paper as a sophomore and you were supposed to be a junior or senior.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started writing for it. And then my junior year, I was the opinions editor, of course. And then senior year, I was the editor in chief. But I wrote lots of columns where I would just like one of the columns was about Proposition 8 in California and just how like being homophobic is lame. And then I wrote about how not every class needs to be like a brutal AP class, but it's also ridiculous to be 17 and learning about allegedly laws and criminology and we get a fucking word search. So I had written this thing that was pretty much calling teachers out for being like, you can tell that they're just giving us homework or they're giving us tasks that do the bare minimum and for some reason like can count as schoolwork, but don't actually teach us anything. And it's like, be a teacher or find a different job. So she started because I would write all these opinion pieces and she would call me into her office and then she would be like, so-and-so is upset. And I particularly remember the one about the teachers and being like, do your fucking job. Don't give us crosswords as 17-year-olds who are supposed to be learning about sociology and criminology. And she was like, there are a lot of teachers upset. And I just was like, okay. And she's like, well, some of them are just like, they feel called out. And I just straight up said, they should. That was my intent. And she had no idea how to respond. And I just kind of kept looking at her. And eventually, because she was calling me out of class for these so much, she asked me, she's like, what period should I just grab you from? And I said 5th period because I hated physics and I hated Mr. Lowe. If you're listening, you're a dick. I think what also teachers were pissed about, I think they were pissed because some 17-year-old was calling them on their bullshit and was right.
Well, and was also asking to be challenged more. It's like, you're literally going to be mad at a student who wants to learn. Is that not the whole point?
And I'm not saying teaching isn't difficult, but I'm also
No.
saying that it is your job.
Yes, certainly.
I have only had 2 teachers who did not like me, and it was him, and then it was a math teacher who tried to take my notebook away because I was drawing on it while taking notes, and she tried to pull it away, and I held it, and then we were just doing a tug of war because I was like, nah, bitch, you're not taking this from me.
Sid, you are so brave. Like, truly, Sid, I am so scared of authority. If a teacher could have been like, I want your entire backpack, and I would have been like, okay, you take it. You're the boss. You can have that now. That belongs to you. They would have been like, can I have your identity? I would have been like, yeah, of course. I will.
As you're peeling your
my
face
driver's
off.
license. Yeah, here's my face. And like, you writing the articles that you did, not only in high school, which is like hard enough to have a different opinion than anybody, but in our town, like, I just didn't realize how brave you were. And I'm just really proud. And I'm just so glad that you didn't die.
Shit, me too. No, that means a lot. I genuinely felt like, about being out and everything, I genuinely felt a responsibility to be out. And my thought and I literally would think this, like, when like things were really shitty. And I need to preface this with saying this was for me. That this is not, if you can't be out because it's not safe, or even if it is safe and you don't feel comfortable being out, this is not a comment on that. This was just for me. My thing was the only, like, I've repeated this since I was like 14 or 15. And sometimes when I get scared, but mostly it was just about being out, I would repeat it. And it's like, the only thing worse than being dead is being a coward. I truly, truly felt that. Obviously, it's not true. Get out of situations and survive no matter how.
But if that's how you got through it, that's how you got through it.
Yeah. And a lot of it was because I was reading a lot too about Matthew Shepard. Did you know he and I have the same birthday?
No, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, I like to send a little, I don't know, I don't really believe in heaven or anything, but I like to send a just little like happy birthday to him on my birthday. But I did a speech on him in GATE, and because I was like, I did a lot of pro-gay shit in school and whatnot. And like one of my speeches was on him. And it's like, I kind of knew about him, but it was really in like probably 9th or 10th grade where I actually like did my own, like I figured out who he was and what happened. And my thought was that like, if he could be out at a much more difficult time, not like the mid 2000s weren't great, or like mid 2000s, early 2010s were like an easy time. But I'm like, if he could be out an even more scary community to be out in, and like he died for it, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to die. So I should be that brave. Anyways, I'm so sorry. I did not mean for this. I thought this episode was going to be light and fluffy, and here we are. Cut whatever. Honestly, it's your episode. Cut whatever you want. If you want to cut all of my trauma out, I really don't mind, because I don't want to ruin your episode. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer.
That's what I like about these episodes, though, because I go into it and like, yeah, I have my stuff that I want to talk about, I guess, or the research I've done. But like, I like where we end up, because we do end up in some really weird places. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, for me, if I were a listener, that would be like the fun part for me, that it wouldn't just be like a book report on the first of the Georgia Nicolson series, because that's not really what we're here for.
True. We're here for some hard life lessons.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Georgia's family, but only a little bit, because she doesn't talk about them all that much. Libby, though, is quite possibly one of my favorite characters, and this is Georgia's 3-year-old sister. Her name also is short for Liberty.
Oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. Because I don't think I'd ever heard that as a name before.
Yes, but she always calls her Libby. I am going to read to you my favorite Libby moment from this book.
Do the Libby moments hit different now that you've had kids?
Yes, they hit even funnier, because it so reminds me of my girls when they were that age, and just like how fucking nuts they are. Because I remember as a teenager reading about Libby and thinking like, I think there might be something wrong with her. Like it was funny, but there was also this part of me that was like,
bring her
is
to the
that
doctor.
Normal? Yes. And now reading back on it, I'm like, holy shit. Like this is so funny. And I don't even know if the author had kids, but she knew what a wild 3-year-old is like. And I love it. Okay. So for context, Georgia is, I think, like pushing Libby in a stroller down the street, and they run into Robbie, the sex god. We'll start here. He smiled again. He was dreamy when he smiled. Then he bent down to Libby, who, true to form, gave him one of her scary, I am a crazy child looks. She said, I am the queen. And he said, are you? Oh, he's so lovely to children. Then Libby said, yes, I am the queen, and Georgia did a big poo this morning.
I remember this, the big poo.
Fucking Libby. I love that child.
Oh my God. That is though, because like I am so sorry. I have told some of the things that your girls have said to you to so many of my coworkers, including the beard thing and the you getting dressed in your butt thing. I'm sorry, but I've shared it with so many people because it's so funny.
Oh my gosh. No, those are very funny. I don't mind that you share them because I still get a laugh out of them. And
they're so good.
It's just shit that kids say at the worst possible moment.
Just horrible. Horrible timing, but also impeccable timing.
Oh, incredible. So another thing that I love about Libby is and I think I actually mentioned this in one of our last episodes, but she calls George's tampons George's little mice, and she uses her sanitary pads as hammocks for her dolls, which is ingenious. And I don't know why we never did it.
Brilliant.
Right? Missed opportunity.
Either it actually happened and the writer used that because like maybe she had a little sister who did that, or if not, that is brilliant because that is how like little kids would like we get so creative with Barbies and repurposing things to be like this is now a Barbie item, like taking the little little swords that are toothpicks
for drinks,
and then being like our Barbies have swords now. Like little kids just repurpose and find like the silliest things and then use them for their toys, and I love that.
You're right. They also, speaking of sanitary pads, because I just can't stop talking about lady stuff,
or vagina stuff.
God, I can't remember now if it was my oldest or my youngest, but anyway, probably around that age, because I didn't have any privacy and still kind of don't. They had seen me put one of those in my underwear. And so then one of them, again, I can't remember which one, took one of them without my knowledge and had put it like on the outside of her pants. And luckily I did see that before she went anywhere, but I was just like, oh, honey, no.
No. I can't remember if I've told this story on the podcast before, but it's like my friend, when his oldest daughter was probably, like 3 or 4, he had to adjust his bits and tried to do it subtly. And then one day he noticed his daughter was like grabbing at her crotch, and his ex-girlfriend, but her mom, like was wondering too. And she was like, what are you doing? And the kid just goes, I don't know, but daddy does it.
That's the best. Lastly on my family list is just Muddy and Vatty. She nicknames them that because in German, I think it's Mutter and Vater are mom and dad. And so she just gives them those nicknames. I don't know if we even ever know their real names. And she's basically...
That checks out.
Yeah, she's just kind of like embarrassed by them the whole time, understandably. So as we're sort of wrapping things up, I want to talk about just a few memorable moments from the first book and the series. So we can't really talk about Georgia Nicolson without mentioning the snogging scale. Do you remember the snogging scale? You have to.
I don't. Do you think it's something you censored? You censored like a ton of the kissing, or you'd just be like, they kissed. And then I'd be like, you just flipped 2 pages.
You're like, I'm not dumb.
No, I remember distinctly you were just like, I'm not going to read this bit because I think it was just like a makeout session. And I waited until you had gone outside and I obsessively went through the book and tried to find it and I couldn't find it. And I wanted to know the secrets you were hiding.
How dare you? Well, then I will tell you about it now since you have waited so long.
Thank you.
Here is their scoring system for kissing and so on. So number 1 is holding hands. 2 is arm around. 3 is a goodnight kiss.
Cute.
4 is a kiss lasting over 3 minutes without a breath, which sounds dangerous.
Yeah, that's tiring.
5 is open mouth kissing. 6 would be tongues. 7 is upper body fondling outdoors.
So I just have to add, because people can't see this, Riley keeps checking behind the curtain to make sure her children have not once again creeped down.
Number 8 is upper body fondling indoors, as in bed. 9 is below waist activity.
Oh.
And 10 is the full Monty. That'll make sense.
Honestly, yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does.
The next memorable moment for me is when she accidentally shaves her eyebrows off.
Yeah, I do remember this. Not like verbatim, but I remember it.
Oh, it's like one of my favorite things because I could so have seen myself doing that.
Oh, absolutely. I could have seen you doing it too.
Thanks. I love this part in her diary, though, where she says, "Through my curtains, I can see a big yellow moon. I'm thinking of all the people in the world who will be looking at the same moon. I wonder how many of them haven't got any eyebrows."
It's such fun writing. God damn.
It is. I laughed out loud a few times rereading this. There truly are laugh out loud funny moments.
I might have to reread it or read it like in a way for the first time.
You should, as a grown-up, uncensored.
Uncensored. Finally.
And now for a not so fun memory. And again, you might not remember this because I might not have even read it. Do you remember anything about Cousin James?
I remember the name and kind of creepiness, but not much.
Okay, that's a correct feeling. He, at one point, so he comes to stay with Georgia and her family, and they were like really good friends as kids. So he stays in her room, like he sleeps over, and I think he's like in a sleeping bag on the ground or something. And he just sort of like puts his hand on Georgia's leg. And she's so uncomfortable and creeped out that she just stays still and ends up falling asleep. But then there's another moment where he comes back over for another visit and he tries to kiss her, and they're cousins.
I do remember that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot.
That's upsetting. What's so weird is like this seems like it would fit with not comedy.
And there are a few moments like that where things are almost put in like a comedic way that are maybe more uncomfortable and like not consensual sort of things.
Sometimes, but I will say, like sometimes that is coping.
Very true. Very true. It was an odd set of moments. So there is that. Another thing, and this is something that I related very hard with Georgia on, and I think you probably will too, are all of her nose insecurities.
Yes.
It might honestly be one of the biggest reasons why I liked these books so much, because
I thought it was.
I'm like, she gets it. She gets it. It wasn't in this first book, but I do distinctly remember in another book in the series that she makes a sort of like nose hammock situation to like keep her nose from growing down and drooping too much. I want to say she literally took like knickers and like put them around her face to like hold her nose.
I can absolutely see both of us having tried that in like junior high, right? Like privately, just being like, maybe this will work.
Oh, Sid, I used to, and of course I couldn't do it very hard because it's hard to do that to yourself. I would try to punch my own nose to break it so that I could have it fixed.
Oh, that's actually really sad.
I told David that just recently, like in the last year, and he had the exact same reaction. He was like, that's just really sad.
Yeah, I think that counts as self-harm, but also like same.
But it's like I wasn't doing it as like a punishment or anything. I just thought if I could just, break it real quick, maybe when they reset it and fixed it, like it would be straight. As we know, though, like when you get even just like lightly bonked in the nose, it hurts so badly. So to even try to like do that to myself was an absolutely ridiculous plan. But I did try it a few times. Here are some more things, I guess, that didn't age super well. So they have a PE teacher named Miss Stamp. Do you remember her at all?
Not really, no.
Okay. So they reference her being a lesbian constantly. And I actually didn't remember all of these references in the book until I read it. And it's not in a positive way. And they also don't actually know if she is or not. They just sort of, I think it's because she's not married and a PE teacher. And so they'll make comments too about how like, they'll be in the showers and they want to get out before she comes in because she's like going to watch, that sort of thing where it's like, you don't actually know if she is. And even if she was, what you're talking about is being a pedophile, which is not the same as being a lesbian. So those are two different things. And Georgia also constantly worries about being a lesbian when she doesn't have a boyfriend. There's a moment too where Jess calls her a leslie when Georgia holds her hand at one point. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the times because I feel like that was very normal. But
oh yeah, lived it.
Reading it now, it was unfortunate because I'm like, oh, like I hate these parts because there's nothing funny about it and it's so ignorant.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if you censored some of that too.
And I might have. Yeah. God, did I read like any of this to you?
It was just the first word of every chapter. It became a beautiful like haiku. I mean, I remember a little bit about her worrying that she was a lesbian. And I also weirdly kind of being like, but what if she was?
Like, but would that be a bad thing?
Yeah, for me, it was a little different. I mean, it wasn't like, would that be a bad thing? But it was like that kind of weird, like, why do I want that?
Okay. On that same note, there's no LGBTQ representation whatsoever in these books. At least nothing positive, I guess. So that's unfortunate, obviously. Georgia also makes a joke about her dad being a transvestite because she finds some sort of apron situation in one of his drawers when she's looking for something. I'm still not sure what this apron was, but
it sounds like just because like she sees aprons as feminine and is like,
maybe, yeah. I think it was
that doesn't age.
No, it doesn't age well. I think it was the fact too that like it was in like a drawer, like maybe where he would keep more intimate stuff. Like you'd think maybe an apron would be like hanging in the kitchen or something. I don't know.
Maybe her dad just liked to be naked and put an apron on when he was having alone adult time with his wife.
Well, and I did kind of wonder that because I don't have the quote in front of me, but her mom explains it in such a weird, cagey way that still doesn't make sense to me this day, that I did wonder if it was something like that. And it bothers me that like as an adult, I still can't figure it out.
You're just too naive.
Yes, truly. I was like, I still don't understand that. We kind of went into this earlier throughout our tangents, but there is, again, a lot of personal body shaming and body shaming of other girls in the books, which doesn't age well, is not nice, etc., etc. So my test for these is usually like, would I let the girls, watch it, read it, whatever. I'm kind of torn on this one because I did ultimately enjoy rereading it because I remembered so much of it and I remember reading them to you, which is like such a good memory. And there are just genuine laugh out loud moments. Her brand of humor is like just the way she wrote this character. You truly think that you're reading a teenage girl's diary. Like you can relate to her on so many levels, even the ones that are maybe not so great. But obviously for like the problems that we just talked about, it's a hard one. I feel like if they were old enough that we could have a discussion about those things, that I would still let them read them. That's kind of where I'm at. So I definitely wouldn't say that these are like put them away, never read them again by any means, because I think parts of them do still hold up and the humor is so great. But I think I'd need to be careful about going into them with the girls and explaining some of the things that aren't okay, which I mean, some of it they probably know anyway or would know at that point. I guess what I'm saying is like so much of it is relatable from the teenage experience, but there are some things that you sort of don't want them to almost like start imitating. Like if they don't have those insecurities, you don't necessarily want them to think like, oh, I should have those insecurities or I've never thought about that. At the same time, they're exposed to so much in media that I think that comes down to more of just like having those conversations with your kids.
Yeah, and parenting and
than thinking like one book is going to mess them up. So that, I guess that's where I sit with it.
I think that's a really good stance on it, that like right now, I imagine you would not let your oldest read them.
No, there's too many complicated things that I'd have to lay out there for her.
Yeah.
She's definitely not old enough now, but I feel like once she reached a certain age, it would be okay.
I think like you were saying, there's some things that like they already know would be wrong. If they read those bits, they would probably be kind of confused and uncomfortable of like the kind of shitty homophobic bits. I feel like you would have to explain because I feel like they wouldn't get it of like why they're saying that and acting that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I started to think about too, is like, well, yeah, they'll probably read that and be like, why are they saying those things? Like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
So I think it'd be more of a, just kind of talking with them about how, unfortunately, that's how some people thought and just have that discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, I could totally see them when they're like older and it's like more age appropriate. I could see them liking them and finding them really funny.
And like all the pranks that they pull at the school and stuff are so ridiculous and funny. And they take it so seriously though, like the planning of these pranks. Mm-hmm. And there was like one where they had, I can't remember if it was a substitute or if they had like a religion teacher that was super nervous and I don't even know how to describe her, but what they would do is like every time this teacher like turned towards the board, they would really quietly all move their desks back like an inch. And so by the end of the class, they were all at like the back of the wall squished together. And just like stuff like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so dumb, but it's so funny.
I love pranks like that aren't like mean ones where you're not like hurting or scaring or upsetting somebody, but it's just like this ridiculous. Oh God, that's so fucking funny.
Yes. Or like, do you remember the beret hijinks? Because they had to wear berets on their way to school for some reason.
Oh my God.
So they were always planning ways to wear their beret in a way that was still technically wearing it, but was hardly showing. So one time they like pinned them to the very backs of their heads so like you couldn't see them, or they like did the sausage method and they like rolled them up teeny tiny like sausages and then just like pinned them back in their hair and just stuff like that. That they would have like meetings on to discuss like what they were going to do with their berets that term.
It just feels so high school, but like in the best way.
Right.
I love that.
I honestly would recommend these books, just knowing that you're going into some stuff that hasn't held up well, but they are genuinely funny. Even as an adult, I still laughed at them. And I hope that you do read a couple of these books like on your own, because some of it you will remember and some of it will be totally new to you because I censored it from your life.
I kind of love that because did mom ask you to, or did you just do it because you're a good older sister? Or like
I think I just did it because I think part of it was like, ooh, I don't know that is age appropriate for her. And I think part of it too was maybe some discomfort on my end.
I was going to say some like embarrassment.
Yes, even reading some of those parts out loud. So I think it was a little bit of both.
But I think that is really cute that like you You took into account like what was age appropriate for me. I said, you really were a good big sister.
What happened?
What happened? I think it was around 32 when, no, but it's something that like you did a lot of really just thoughtful things like that. You did kind of suck in like high school years. No, you did.
I know. Yeah, I did.
But you know what? You came back really strong. Like you had a great recovery.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hate to cut things short, but I really better get back upstairs.
It's also been over 2 hours, so you're not cutting it short. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're going to have so much to edit, Obi.
Guys, it's going to take so long. That's okay. This was fun, and we had some unexpected moments, and that was fun too. Maybe not Christ. Fun, but like,
Yeah. I need to get back to therapy, everyone. I think.
If you want fun, lighthearted, we've got it. If you want dark and morbid, we've got that too.
Get up in our DMs and worship us. No.
You've reached Sid
and Riley.
We can't come to the phone right now,
so leave a message after the beep. Ruining Our Childhood was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Psych. But it is produced by us, Riley and Cassidy.
With music by Joseph Tuna Medish.
You can follow us on Instagram at ruiningourchildhoodpod.
Or send us an email at ruiningourchildhoodpod@gmail.com.
Support the show through our Ko-fi account, ko-fi.com/ruiningourchildhoodpodcast.
Later.